They mistook him for just another face in the crowd. What they didn't realize was he was a decorated combat veteran, trained to stand firm under fire. And this time, the battlefield wasn't overseas. It was a parking lot in North Dakota. They picked the wrong man. There are days when the world tries to erase who you are, when everything you've earned gets shoved aside with one blind accusation. For Keenan Rucker, that day came on a sweltering Saturday, right outside Grady's Hardware at the edge of Bismarck, North Dakota. He wasn't thinking about anything deep, just the list his mother texted: gloves, a nozzle, some bags of potting soil, nothing dramatic. He looked like any guy might after a weekend jog: dark shorts, a hoodie, sneakers still caked with a bit of trail dust, just another errand. But the second he touched the handle of the store's glass door, everything shifted. "Hey, you, don't move!" The voice cut through the air like a whip. Before Keenan could process it, two officers closed in fast. Deputy Wade Colson, a large man with a perma-scowl and baked red skin, grabbed Keenan's shoulder with a grip that twisted his hoodie. Officer Brent Marbury, younger but just as fired up, moved to block the exit. Keenan lifted his hands calmly. "What's going on?" "You know exactly what," Colson snapped. Without another word, he slammed Keenan into the brick wall, hard. The crack of impact echoed across the lot. Heads turning, families mid-load, a kid on a bike, even an old man with soil bags in a cart. Keenan didn't resist. He'd been trained better than that. "You're making a mistake," he said, voice level. Marbury yanked his arms and clicked the cuffs. "Tight, too tight. Caught you red-handed, huh?" one of them muttered. "Doing what?" Keenan asked. He hadn't even stepped inside the store yet. Across the lot, a woman in a sundress stood frozen. A teen filmed quietly. A couple whispered by the carts. Eyes everywhere. But no one stepped forward. "My ID's in my back pocket," Keenan said. "Quieter now." Colson didn't care. "You match the description," he said, dragging him toward the cruiser. "What description?" Keenan asked. "You didn't even check." "Don't need to," Colson growled. "You're it." They tossed him in the back seat like he was a sack of trash. Door slammed shut. Keenan stared straight ahead. His heart wasn't pounding from fear. It was the cold, smoldering kind of fury that only grows when everything you've built means nothing to the people holding the power. Time passed. Then the radio crackled. Wrong guy. The real suspect had already been caught. On the other side of town. No hoodie, no gym shorts, no resemblance. Colson muttered a curse. Marbury flushed red. They opened the car door and uncuffed Keenan on the spot. No apology. No explanation. "Get out of here," Colson said, like Keenan was some stray animal. Keenan rose, rubbing his wrists. Then he stared them both down, calm, steady. "You'll be hearing from me," Colson sneered. Marbury couldn't meet his eyes. Keenan turned back toward the store, the eyes of strangers still following him. Some whispered, others pretended not to see. He grabbed a cart with steady hands and headed for the garden aisle. Gloves, nozzle, soil. Like nothing happened, but everything had. Inside, something shifted. He moved through the store mechanically, got in line, nodded at the cashier, loaded the soil into his trunk. His wrists ached every time he flexed them. Those cuffs weren't just a mistake, they were a message, and Keenan had received it loud and clear. Across the lot, the officers were gone, but the humiliation lingered. "Keenan," a voice called out. He turned. Mr. Dalton, the old Army vet who ran the pawn shop nearby, approached. Gray hair, flannel shirt, jeans. Always smelled like sawdust and black coffee. "You all right?" Keenan forced a tired smile. "Yeah, Mr. Dalton, Just a misunderstanding. Dalton frowned. Didn't look like one to me. Keenan didn't reply. He wasn't ready. Dalton narrowed his eyes. Don't let him walk over you. Not you. Keenan nodded once. I won't. It wasn't much, but it stayed with him. The drive home was quiet. No music. Just the low hum of tires and the weight of everything that had just happened. At home, his mother, Francine, called from the kitchen. That you, baby? Yeah, Ma, he replied, stepping inside. She peeked around the corner. You get everything? He nodded, smile barely there. Yeah, got it all. She stared a beat too long. Mothers know. You okay? Asked softly. He paused. Just tired. She didn't press. Just gave him that knowing look, ready when he was. After dinner, after the dishes were done, the quiet settled in. And Keenan stood before the hallway closet. The one that held memories. His uniform. His medals. His boots. Polly. He pulled out the pieces, one by one. Jacket, pants, white gloves, combat badge gleaming in the light like a challenge. This wasn't about revenge or spectacle. It was about truth, identity, dignity. He laid the uniform on the bed with care, everything aligned perfectly. Then he sat by the window, watching the street. His reflection stared back. Tired eyes, straight spine. A man who had faced worse. A man they would now have to reckon with. Morning came heavy and gray. He was up before the light broke, mind clear, purpose sharp. By 6:30, he was suiting up. The uniform fit like armor. His boots gleamed. His ribbons sat straight. Downstairs, Francine handed him coffee. Pride and concern in her eyes. You sure about this? He nodded. It's the only way they'll listen. She pressed her hand to his chest, right over his medals. Then walk in there like the man you are. I will. The latch clicked as he shut the door. This wasn't just a trip downtown. It was The sheriff's department wasn't far, a small brick building on Avenue C. As he parked and stepped out, heads turned. Conversations stopped. Even strangers sensed it. Inside, the front desk buzzed with routine. Until Keenan walked in. A young deputy stood up straight. Can I help you, sir? Keenan removed his cap, tucked it under one arm. I'm here to file a formal complaint. The deputy gulped. Chief Bowden is inside. I'll get him. Keenan nodded, unmoving. Civilians filed in behind him. People paying tickets, asking questions. One by one, they noticed him. Some whispered. One filmed. 5 minutes later, Chief Bowden appeared. Thin hair, tired eyes. His face went pale. Morning, Keenan, he said, voice cracking. Morning, Keenan replied coolly. Let's, step into my office? In a moment. He pulled a folded paper from inside his jacket. I'm filing formal charges. Deputy Colson and Officer Marbury. Assault, false arrest, civil rig. The chief's hand shook as he accepted the paper. I expect a full investigation, transparent, public. Yes, understood. Keenan said no more. The words were enough. They echoed across the lobby like a stone in still water. He replaced his cap, turned, and walked out. He didn't need permission. The sun was bright, but he didn't blink. Back inside, phones began to ring. By noon, the whole town was talking. At cafes, at gas stations, in barber shops. You see what he was wearing? Someone said at Darla's diner. Looked like a general. Damn right someone needed to stand up. Keenan didn't need to chase the noise. He'd already set the truth in motion. And, once it started, there was no stopping it. This is turning into a sideshow, Colson muttered, slamming a fist into his other hand. He didn't even look hurt, Marbury whispered, eyes darting to the floor. Chief Bowden snapped his head up. You cuffed a U.S. Army vet without ID verification. You humiliated a decorated soldier right in front of the entire town, And now you're crying because he walked away without a bruise? Silence. A knock interrupted the tension. The mayor's assistant stood red-faced at the door, visibly rattled. The mayor needs you. Now. Odin didn't argue. He already knew. This wasn't a conversation. It was the guillotine. Outside the parking lot, pulsed with energy. A crowd had gathered, some with signs scribbled on cardboard. Justice for Kenan. Respect is earned. We stand with our veterans. It wasn't just black folks either. Ranchers, kids in baseball caps, moms holding toddlers, people who'd seen injustice for too long and for once refused to pretend it wasn't there. Even Mr. Landers, Kenan's former principal, spoke to the press. Kenan Rucker was one of the finest men I've ever taught. What happened to him? It's a disgrace. Every word hit Colson and Marbury like bricks. No courtroom verdict could weigh heavier than the chants echoing.
You think they'll fire us?
Marbury asked, voice brittle. Colson didn't answer. Deep down, they both knew they were done. No badge was going to save them from the storm they created. Back at home,
Kanan sat at the kitchen table, eating baked chicken and green beans
like it was just another Sunday. You proud of yourself? Francine asked softly. He shrugged. Just did what needed to be done. She reached across the table, squeezed his hand. And you did it with dignity. That's what'll last. Out the window, the glow of news vans blinked down the block. Kanan didn't watch. He didn't need to. The moment that mattered had already happened. He made them look at him, really look. But Monday was coming, and with it, the question. Would the system change, or would it bury the shame like it always does? By sunrise, Bismarck no longer felt like a sleepy town. The media had picked it up, first local stations, then the national morning shows.
Kenan's image, proud in his uniform,
flashed across millions of screens. People weren't talking about a hardware store anymore. They were talking about a veteran being humiliated on American soil. And they were furious. Outside the sheriff's department, the crowd had doubled. Lawn chairs, American flags, not as threats, but as promises. Reverend Cyrus Dalton stood calm with a megaphone. When one of us is treated like less, we're all treated like less. Kenan stayed home, not hiding, just refusing to play into the media circus. His phone blew up with calls. Old army buddies, teachers, strangers from other states. One voicemail stuck with him. You reminded us what quiet strength looks like. Thank you. Inside, Chief Bowden cracked under pressure. There was no more room to hide. He placed both Deputy Colson and Officer Marbury on administrative leave, pending external review. A press conference was called, hastily. Cameras clicked. Bowden looked like he'd rather be anywhere else.
We take these allegations seriously.
Beside him, a rep from the state's Office of Professional Standards stood stiff, arms crossed. The questions came hard and fast. Why weren't IDs checked? Will the officers face charges? How can the public trust you now? But it was a voice from the back that cut deepest. Would you have cuffed him if he'd been in uniform? Silence. Outside, the chants swelled. At home, Francine poured sweet tea on the porch. You know, you could probably run for mayor now, she teased. Kenan chuckled for real this time. Not my lane. You might not want to be a hero, she said, but you are one anyway. Cars honked as they passed. Strangers waved, dropped off pies, envelopes, warm casseroles. Kenan took it all the same way he took that moment outside the store, with quiet dignity. Later that night, flipping through the news, he saw himself again and again. Not angry, not loud, just still. And that stillness had power.
Commentators debated. This isn't just about one man, this is a pattern. If a man like Staff Sergeant Rucker can be treated this way, what does that say to every veteran? But Kenan already knew the real danger wasn't the handcuffs. It was the silence that followed. Then came the twist no one expected. Just 3 days after the protests peaked, both officers were suspended without pay, with termination hearings scheduled. Not just because of the town. Veteran groups across the state had flooded City Hall. Emails, letters, calls. A convoy of retired Marines even held a 24-hour silent vigil outside the department. Dress blues, polished shoes, standing straight in the sun. No yelling, just presence, and it was deafening. Keenan watched from a distance, not because he didn't care, but because he knew. The spotlight can bend even the best intentions. He agreed to only one interview, with Jessica Mullins from Channel 7. Under the old oaks at Memorial Park, Keenan wore jeans and a plain black tee. No uniform. He didn't need it. "What was going through your mind when they grabbed you?" Jessica asked gently. Keenan looked out over the grass. "I wasn't thinking about me," he said. "I was thinking about everyone who never got the chance to prove who they were." "Everyone who never got the benefit of the doubt?" she asked. He nodded. "What do you want people to take away?" He looked straight into the camera. "Respect isn't something you give out when it's easy. It's something you owe everyone, no exceptions." The segment aired raw, no edits, no dramatics, just the truth, and people listened. Days later, at a packed town hall, the mayor issued a formal apology. He called Keenan a pillar of strength and announced sweeping reforms: bias training, citizen oversight, accountability reviews. It wasn't everything, but it was a beginning. Then Francine Rucker stood up. "My son didn't ask for any of this," she said. "He didn't need a crowd. He just needed the same respect any human being deserves." You could have heard a pin drop. Keenan didn't cry, didn't smile. He simply let the moment settle. Something real had finally been said out loud. That weekend, Dalton from the pawn shop found him outside Grady's Hardware. "You did good, son," he said, shaking Keenan's hand. "Long road ahead. Maybe, but you moved the line. That matters." Change hadn't come in a tidal wave. It came in handshakes, eye contact, conversations that would have never happened before. At the gas station, the clerk who once barely looked up now said, "Morning, Sergeant Rucker." At the grocery store, strangers nodded, slower, more deliberate. And one evening, under a fading gold sky, Keenan stood in the park again. No uniform, just jeans, boots, and a sweatshirt. Kids laughed nearby. Across the street, Reverend Dalton waved goodnight. Francine joined him with 2C. "You regret any of it?" she asked. "Not a second," Keenan said. "You didn't just stand for yourself," she replied. "You stood for all of us who never got the chance." He didn't say much. He let it sink in, the weight of what had changed, even if just a little. "You can't change hearts overnight," he said finally. "But you can show them what respect looks like. Make them see themselves." Francine smiled. "Sometimes that's all it takes to start a wave." And as the first stars flickered above, Keenan stood up, looked out over the town that had once turned its back, and said quietly, "Respect starts here." His hand touched his chest, where every lesson, every moment of restraint, every battle, visible and not, still lived. Because dignity isn't loud. It doesn't scream. It's the silent refusal to bow to hate. It's standing your ground, even when no one's looking. And that changes everything. If Keenan's story moved you, don't just watch and scroll. Pause, reflect, and ask yourself, what kind of world are you helping to shape? By what you say, what you ignore, and what you stand for. Hit that subscribe button. Share this story. Let's be the change, not tomorrow, today.